Everybody. I always feel a little torn whether to wait for people to come on because I'm not doing these at a consistent time at all yet. So there's pretty much no advance notice. That's why if you're not subscribed, go to my YouTube channel and subscribe and hit notifications, that little bell. You want to hit that little bell till it gets black. And that means that you'll be notified by YouTube when I'm coming on, or at least, after I've been on. So anyway, I have a few things to talk about today. It's a very, very special day, very incredible, exciting potential. This is the 23rd of the Hebrew month of Sivan, and this is the day back in ancient history, in ancient Persia, at the time of the Persian exile, when the Jews were under the decree of complete destruction, once again, by the evil Haman, and the wicked king Achashverosh. This is how the story is told. So eventually the whole thing turned around. This is the Purim story. A lot of people talk about the Purim story, including people who have nothing to do with Judaism. It's not their history, but the Purim story is the ultimate story of a turnaround. It's darkness to light. It's a story of God weaving through nature, through natural processes, through kings and rulers and generals and assassins and innocent people who are pulled into things that they don't want to be pulled into, but yet they have a divine role to play. All of these themes, all of these features are part of the Purim story. And ultimately, there's this vast tapestry. We're living in a vast tapestry, and it's a tapestry of both space and time and souls. And we are playing roles. We're playing important roles. The thing is, usually we can't see how important our role is, and we can't see the whole tapestry. We only see the reverse side. If you've ever seen an actual tapestry, a lot of them are hanging in museums, or even a what do you call that, embroidery. They see on the front side, you see the picture. On the back side, all you see is knots and random looking strings with no discernible pattern. But that's because when you're operating from the backside, you can't actually see the picture. When you're on the front side, you can see, when you look at the front of the tapestry, you can see what's actually intended, and what all of those strange knots and detours and crossing overs and, entanglements and all of that we experience as life, what they were all part of, what they were all here to facilitate. So that's the essence of the Purim story. And ultimately, the Purim story is the giant turnaround where Haman was hanged on the very gallows that he had created for Mordecai. The tons and tons and tons and volumes and volumes and volumes of mystical explanations. And this is about worlds and souls and cosmos and God. Anywhere it says the king in the Megillah, that wicked king Achashverosh, it's actually referring to the actual king, the King of Kings, God, who is conducting everything through all of us, like we're all costumes for God. Every one of our thoughts, every one of our words, every one of our movements, every one of our relationships, every circumstance that happens to us is all God in multiple costumes, in like billions and billions and trillions of costumes, all interacting with each other. Anyway, so on the 23rd of Sivan, back in the Persian day, Haman was killed. Haman was hanged on the gallows that he made for Mordecai, and Mordecai was told by the king. The king told him, I cannot reverse the decree to kill all of the Jews because it was sealed with the ring of the king. And what's sealed with the ring of the king cannot be reversed. God creates, and it can't be uncreated, not within the human sphere. However, it can be rewritten. So, meaning that you can write another narrative on top of the existing foundational narrative that changes everything. So Mordecai was given all of the king's scribes, and just remember that this is multiple levels. The king is God as well as the king Achashverosh. So the king's scribes were all called, and Mordecai was given permission to have them write any decree that he chose on any topic. So one of the things that he wrote was that the Jews have permission to defend themselves. And one of the things that happened was that because the people all over, Achashverosh was king over the known civilized world, 127 nations, they say, the Megillah says. And when people realized that Mordecai had now the ear of the king, so a lot of them lost interest in the original project. And those who still remained stubborn, and there weren't that many, they were defeated, they were killed. So this is the idea. This is the idea of today, and the Rebbe spoke about this. So this is why today is full of supernatural blessings, and you want to lean in and take advantage. You want to align yourself with that. So we are empowered today, like Mordecai was empowered to give orders to the scribes of the king, who originally had decreed that he and all his people be killed. So there was that flip, there was that turnaround. So on this day, we have that energy that every one of us is like Mordecai. Mordecai's extended title is Mordecai HaYehudi, Mordecai the Jew. And so we each have that power, even in times of darkness, even in times of challenge, to, says the Rebbe, to decree to the king's scribes, who is the king in our story, God. We have the ability to command the scribes to write what we desire. So it's an incredibly important day. It's called a Yom Skula, an auspicious day to actually either write. You can write to the Lubavitcher Rebbe if you want at ohelchabad.org. I can write that in the chat so you know how to do that. Two options here. You can write a letter. When you get on that site, you'll see various ways to write a letter. Or you can reach out your hand. Another idea of Purim, another mitzvah of Purim is that anybody who extends his hand to ask, we're supposed to give them. It's like a day when all the portals are open, and we represent that. So people ask for, for donations, for money that they need, and whether you think they deserve it or not, whether you know them or not, you give them. You give. So another way to take advantage of today is to open your hands, literally reach out your hand or your hands, and ask God for what you desire with the confidence that it's going to be written. And whatever the previous plan was, see, this is the idea about prayer in general. It's so supernatural. Our power is so supernatural. We just don't know it and we don't believe in it. And that is what is, we don't use it. That's what's keeping us in this more victimized position. We don't have to be here anymore at all. But prayer, asking, especially from an intimate, connected place, especially from a receiving place, has the power to literally change things at their source. Now, it's not going to erase creation. What it's going to do is up level. If there was a certain path by which you had to have a certain lesson or a certain purpose had to be fulfilled. So when you reach up, connect and decree in that sense, obviously with respect, but with confidence, which I'll talk about in a second, that power of confidence. So there is another new decree that comes down that automatically modifies the previous one. So we can actually affect that which is sealed. And that's the other idea. It doesn't matter. We often have a feeling like this is my fate. This is, how can I possibly, this is the fate of the world. It doesn't matter what's sealed. And this is another thing that we learned from the Purim story, that we need to integrate and activate here in our lives, that it doesn't matter whether it's sealed or not. Once we connect to the source, the one who carries the ring, we can create a new decree. And that will affect all of creation. This is actually very parallel to what I shared, I guess it was last week or the week before, about the Or Ein Sof, how the Or Ein Sof, Kamayim Panim Panim, the face that we show to the supernal waters of the unlimited divine light. That is the face that then shines down into the world. God created, set it up. See, it's beyond that. God set up, but let's start with that. God set up the system of how things happen by putting the power in our hands. The ball is in your court. God made it like that. Havayat Silcha, God is your shadow. Now, it becomes circular, right? Because whatever we sent up there before, now we are receiving down here. So the most important change we can make is from feeling like a victim of circumstances to feeling like an intimate co-creator with God and doing the work that it takes to align with that. So God created things in this way. Why? And I explained this in the first video I did since coming back to live stream a couple weeks ago. The biggest, I think I called it the ultimate secret. So this is the ultimate secret, that God created the universe, the multiverse this way because it rose into his primal ratzon, his primal desire that that's the way it should be. That's God's deepest desire. But it's not just that it's deepest desire that the ball is in your court, that you initiate and he follows. It's that deepest desire is rising up off of God's very essence. His essence is his isness. So what God is that the ball is in your court. That's what he is, and that's what gives him the deepest pleasure, and that's what this whole intense, incredible, challenging, I could have a billion adjectives for it, project of creation is all about, that we should step into, we should be created from godliness, then placed into a world where we have amnesia and where the evil voice of the snake, that primordial snake, is intertwined with our consciousness. So we carry an inner snake that is constantly trying to disable us, to deceive us, to delude us, to derail us, to take us on the wrong path, to make us feel like victims. And we have reached the point in history, I'm not going to go through a whole, I've discussed some of this before, I'll discuss it again, but not now. The point for here is that we've reached the place in history where this is all subject to change, where it is up to us now to awaken, big word in our times, right? To awaken our consciousness, to awaken our divine power, to understand and to align with and to act into the fact that the ball is in our court. So first of all, supernatural blessings today. Ask for what you want. Hold out your hand and ask for whatever you want, because this is the day. Second of all, faith versus trust. So a lot of people have lost faith. Hi, Ruthie. Hi, Yitzchak. I'll check your questions in a minute. But having faith, and a lot of people say, have faith, don't let go of your faith. There are a lot of Torah movements that have to do with faith, emunah. But really, faith, although faith is a prerequisite for pretty much anything that you'll do, and because faith is knowing, believing, whether you know it or not, believing, extremely high superpower of the soul, that there is a God, that there is a creator that can do anything, that's an omnipotent, that cares for you, that does things for your good, even if you can't see it. That's faith. But ultimately, the true superpower is not faith, but trust. Trust is called bitachon. Bitachon also means confidence. It also means security. Bitachon, the definition of bitachon is a calm relaxedness that everything is going to be good. Not like I can't see it, it hurts, but I'll accept it because on some other dimension, realm, world, it is good. That's faith. That's not trust. That's not bitachon. Bitachon is that relaxed certainty that God loves me and he's going to make it good. If I want this, if I need this, it's going to happen. Yes, maybe there's some work to do on my part. I'll get those messages and I'll follow because I love God. God loves me. But bitachon is that intimate relationship that takes us to a completely different level of co-creative powers. And that is what we need to activate now. And that leads me to the last little piece of this, which I've called divine sleeper cells. So the Rebbe says that full embodiment, when the soul is fully embodied, there cannot be any illness. It kind of makes sense, right? Because when the soul is disembodied, there's not too much health. Our souls are generally, if you have an ability to muscle test, if you know how to do that, you might want to check in how much of you is choosing life. And then, if you're feeling depressed, notice that. And somebody who's feeling happy, notice what percentage they're choosing life. And my take generally is that people are choosing life at about 30%, in a kind of a routine, dull day. It's like, that's enough to maintain you for quite a long time, 30%. So 70, what's the other 70% of doing is not choosing life? So you don't need to put it in words, but the soul is always wanting to go back to God. It's not so happy with what's going on here a lot of the time. It's coming down for a purpose. That purpose is really hard. And, the host of the soul, the body, the mind, the ego, it forgets. And so people will contract a condition called cholat ava, love sickness, which I've also talked about before. So we want to learn to choose life. It's not an accident that the last commandment in the Torah is to choose life. When you choose life, to the degree that you are leaning into your life, to the degree that you are leaning into your potential, that you're not in resistance, but you're in flow, that you're operating from purpose, that you're conscious of your desire, whatever your desires may be, your soul's desires, deeper desires, like for love and truth and to make a difference and connection and intimacy and passion and to create. All those are authentic soul desires. Beauty, excitement, harmony, delight. Those are soul desires. There are a lot more too. I'm just thinking about some have a whole chart of soul desires that are all high frequency. But whenever you get to the bottom line of what you really want and how you'd feel if you had that, that activates a soul desire. And those are always positive. Those are always part of your purpose. So when we lean into life more fully, and as the Torah says, the last commandment in the Torah is, I set before you life and death, but choose life, or death and life, I don't remember. Choose life. So choosing life is not a small thing. And choosing life is not just, oh, I want to be alive, or I'll have an alive day today, or I'll do good things. It's much deeper than that. It's the embodiment of the soul. It's where the soul recognizes. The soul has gotten enough alignment out of you that it recognizes that it can, in fact, fulfill its purpose by staying in your body, and that it can fulfill its purpose better by being more fully in your body. Yeah, ad matai r'shayim yaloso. Yeah, exactly. I asked for that today. I asked for the downfall, the Hebrew, until when will the wicked still remain? I've asked for the downfall of the wicked in my request today for my supernatural blessings and many, many more things. I talked to God for a good hour and a quarter, hour and a half. And my dad, when I was little, I used to read a lot of fairy tales. My dad used to read fairy tales to me. And he always told me, the genie in the bottle with the 3 wishes. He told me, I can't even tell you how many times he told me this. He was a professor, very not spiritual, but very whimsical. And he told me, if you ever get a genie to give you 3 wishes, the first wish you have to ask for is to have as many wishes as you want. Don't forget. So talking to God today, God's not a genie, but talking to God, I did ask that all of the wishes should be fulfilled, and anything that I don't remember to ask for, or that I would have asked for if I'd ever thought of it, or that would, that caveat, because it's time for us to have revealed good. But in order for that to happen, part of that is choosing life. There are 2 pieces to that. One is choosing life, and that is where the supernatural sleeper cells, we have something called stem cells in our bodies, right? Stem cells, these cosmic cells that can turn into anything, that can fulfill any function. They're supernatural. So those stem cells, physical, also have a spiritual counterpart, spiritual stem cells, a part of our body, a part of our potential, a part of our DNA, the soul power, the life force of the soul that can actually animate the physical body. Those are dormant, latent, until they're activated properly. Stem cell science is a big thing. People are doing a lot of research on how to activate the stem cells of the body. How about the stem cells of the soul? Those are what I'm calling divine sleeper cells. They're sleeping until we wake them up. When we wake them up, they can become anything. Anything. They can transform anything. So the 2 aspects to this, one, choosing life, and there are various tools, awarenesses, practices that really help with this. And the other is, and these 2 are completely related, the other is bringing God everywhere you go. So what does that mean? If you feel happy, talk to God. If you feel sad, feel that in your body and bring God into it. Let God feel sad with you. Hold nothing back. Don't be only in your head. Focus on your body. Focus on your cells. If there's a part of your body that hurts, you can do this right now. Put in your imagination, in your awareness, go into that body part and with love, and feel what you're feeling. Feel the pain of it. Feel the depth of it. Feel the frustration of it, or whatever it is that you're feeling. And now ask God, ask Hashem to come in there with you in those cells and to share those feelings with you. Because here's the deal. We're in a phase in history where we can't do it alone, and God can't do it alone either. The truth is, it's always been like that, but it's been concealed from us. We had a long period of time where, on purpose, our work was meant to be done from a lack of consciousness, kind of, in the darkness. Faith. That connection, faith in that sense represents that connection with God that is above the intellect, above the personality. So the Jewish people, and to a very big degree, all people who are, especially if people are connected to God through faith, whatever background, So that's an overriding soul power from many respects, the highest soul power, because it can overcome and override everything about you. It's that intrinsic, unbreakable, super conscious connection with God, with Source, that nothing can stand in the way of that, which is the core reason why, at least why many people have been willing to die for their faith. Not that I recommend that, but that overrides everything. In the case of Jews, even atheists who will sometimes, go that route, can't be separated. So faith is an overriding reality, an overriding dominance of that core unbreakable connection between the soul and God that is so powerful that, when push comes to shove, it will eclipse everything, even survival, everything. Really want to use it to survive. But that's the power that was needed to be activated and wired in throughout all of these millennia, where we haven't had access to the things that we have access to now. It had to be like that, because in order to really activate and really develop faith to its full power, its full revelation, it has to be challenging, right? Because otherwise, of course, it makes sense to have faith because everything's going my way, like that. So, and this is the story of all challenges, and in particular, it's the story of the Jewish people. It's the only part of the story, one of the reasons why the Jews have been wandering in exile for so long under so much persecution, because they have been validating the power of the intrinsic, inexorable connection with God through the soul and the body over all else. And it's predominated over every attempt also to eradicate this nation. But this is a cosmic principle that's true for every human being as well. But what now? So faith is a core quality, one of the core qualities that's developed in exile. It's not the only one, but it's one of the core, probably the foundational. But now that we are moving from exile to redemption, now what? Now we got to wake up those divine sleeper cells. Now we have to wake up our hidden powers, open those cells so that the soul can embody them, so that the life force of the soul, that divine life force, can awaken those spiritual cells, that potential, and then the physical cells, and everything can transform inside of you and outside of you. What activates that? What activates that is not faith per se, although faith is a foundation for it, but rather trust, bitachon. So the quality of trust, once again, is that relaxed confidence. Like I like to describe it as a baby or a toddler. If you had nice parents, at least one nice parent, maybe you'll remember that feeling of being really, really little and, coming home from a trip and being exhausted, and you're sleeping in your car seat, and your mother or your father picks you up and carries you inside, and you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is be. That's it. And that is the core of the relationship with bitachon, where you are so intimate, where you are so cared for, where you are so loved by someone who has all the power. Only a toddler or a very young child still believes that his parents have all power to protect him from everything, and to a certain degree they do, for most things anyway. So we want to get back to that in our own, after all of this challenge, after all of the exile, after all of the tribulations, after all of the struggles that develop faith. We need to go deeper in now. And this is the opportunity of now, and especially today, in asking for whatever you want on the 23rd of Sivan. So we want to go back into that core connection that is full of trust and relaxation. We're all massively traumatized. And in a certain way, being a believer doesn't make that easier. In a certain way it does. In a certain way it doesn't, because who's traumatizing you if you believe everything comes from God? So how do you come back into a relationship or forward into a relationship where you can be absolutely trusting and certain and relaxed that what you want, you're going to get? Maybe not this minute, maybe yes, maybe tomorrow, but it's coming. Like I heard a phrase yesterday. I put a link under this video to a site called Daily Bitachon meaning trust.com. And that is not my site, but I'm recommending it. It is like Jewish oriented. It's for everybody, but it's Jewish oriented in the sense that words aren't translated, and it's obviously somebody from Brooklyn, who's Torah observant. But the guy is amazing, and he's bringing from Torah sources every day, 8 to 10 minutes, rewiring the brain as to what it is that God wants from us, which is exactly what we want for ourselves. And that's what we did not realize through all the trauma. That didn't show up at all. So bitachon, to come to a place of trust and confidence, security. Bitachon has all those meanings: trust, confidence, and security after millennia and reincarnations and ancestral history of trauma and abuse. That takes something that also overrides the human in us, the mind, the experience, the wiring, just like faith does, but it overrides it on an even higher level, meaning that when we get to that level of trust, it can override all of the trauma, all of our history, all of our wiring, because it takes us straight into intimate, loving, adoring, unbreakable, passionate connection with God. Like, I am yours and you are mine. It's us together. And because, as I said before, I hope this is understandable, but I talked about the mimer, the ultimate secret, and I mentioned it earlier in this live. I know not everybody was on. So because it is God's will, his supernal, intimate, most intimate desire, that we hold the rope of destiny in our little hands, that we get to show our face, our inner desire to the Ein Sof, to the light that precedes creation, that infinite light. And that's what gets imprinted in that light and shines down here. Since God decreed and desires that Havayit Silcha, that he himself is following us, following our lead. He's our shadow. That everything that comes from above comes from us. Since that is God's desire that's coming out of God's essence. And since we are at the end of days, not meaning the end of time, the end of the hard times, that's what it means by the end of days. It's the end of this hard period. We're entering into a period of complete miracles and revealed divine love, such that we can't even imagine, but we can try to imagine some of it. But that's why at this point, we've got to transform our relationship with God. To do that, we have to transform our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with reality, with our beliefs, with our traumas. And the core of doing that is to get God in your cells, to wake up those divine sleeper cells. And how do you do that? You be who you are, choosing life. I am choosing life. I'm not going out, I'm going in. I'm not pushing down or denying what hurts. I'm going right into it. Not to wallow, not to tell the victim story again and again, to feel those raw feelings. And I'm not doing it alone, Hashem. I'm doing it with you. And I'm going to open myself enough to the relationship to allow myself to feel that you heard from this like I heard from this. How could that be? I've asked myself so many times, how can that be? But the way that it can be, the reason that it is like that is because God has created out of his being, out of his innermost essence. The way that God is that he can't change this by himself. He can only depend on us and partner with us. I teach Hasidus, mystical Torah, authentic Kabbalah. And in the core text that I teach that I mention a lot, Shari Yichud, of the Mittler Rebbe, the second Lubavitcher Rebbe, it's the gate of unity. My website, my business named after it. It's the key to Hasidus. It transforms the brain. It's the gateway to divine consciousness. But at the end of the explanation of chapter 1, the commentary of Reb Hill Parcher, the Rebbe said it should be printed with that commentary. So at the end of chapter 1 there, it talks about the relationship between the giver and the receiver, the teacher and the student, which is a parallel for sure for God and us. Oh my gosh, I have a terrible phobia of spiders. And there's one right here on the wall, and it's large. And my husband just left the room. I don't have my phone on me. And what should I do? I feel like I have to end this. The only reason I'm sitting here and not screaming is because my daughter did an NLP session on me last week. Okay, I probably have to end. Everything comes from above. Where was I? So anyway, the idea is to step into the intimate essence of who we are, and God cannot do it without us, and we can't do it without God. And sorry for the abrupt ending of this live, but that's where we are today. So I'm sorry I'm not getting to questions because of this thing that just happened, but wish me luck. I don't know what I'm going to do now. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm coming on with the Geula Doulas with Ani and Gila.